Take my shoes off and get my little feetsies out there for that one guy. Shout outs to you, one guy.
Shout
who
out
liked
to
my
one
feet.
fucking weirdo that loves your feet.
All right, so weird.
3, 2. Hey guys, welcome back to the Arthritis Podcast, official podcast of digital and creative media works. Each week, we take something from pop culture and try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
Hi, my name is Ben. I was taking a drink of water and I got caught off by the question of what's my name?
Got caught off guard.
Yep.
We're back, baby. We're coming to you live from the apocalypse.
Live from the center of David's
new
living room.
apartment.
Yep.
We haven't got a good setup yet. We're gonna get there, I promise. It's very haphazard. This feels like the old days.
This feels like day one when we were literally just in the corner of a basement, and now here we are.
Now here we are.
In the corner of a basement.
Okay, it's not a basement. If you want to help support the show, the best way to do it is to head to patreon.com/Dcm.Works. If you wanted to listen to this a few days early, you can head to Patreon and you would have already heard this. Get access to all kinds of behind the scenes stuff. I've just started publishing the Interface podcast series on there.
The AI
voiced
one.
podcast.
Yep.
So if you want to hear that a few months early, you can head over there to Patreon and check it out.
It's very spooky.
It helps support us and also get access to all of our big projects early. We appreciate your support. Patreon.com/DCM.Works. We thought what better way to kick things back off than to talk about like the end of our favorite thing.
Yeah.
As we come to endings, the end of the studio, end of an era.
The end of the world.
Probably the end of the world.
Yeah.
It does kind of feel like that at the moment. So we figured, why not talk about something that's equally depressing?
Mm-hmm.
And talk about Bojack Horseman Season 6 Part 2.
Which was just extra episodes tacked onto
It
season
was.
6.
So the way that I'm going to approach this is like I've kind of broken down the general themes of like Season 6
As a whole.
and
Yeah.
then like address just kind of the ending as a separate idea.
Sure.
Because the ending is like sort of its own entity in some ways with this.
Yeah.
I don't really know how I feel about it. We'll kind of try and pick our way through it.
Trying to figure out what our feelings are. Because I
Yeah.
kind of had a similar reaction. I was just like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Exactly. It kind of was like,
It's
yeah.
kind of it hurt, but not because of the story, but mainly more because it's just like the context of the show ending.
Exactly. For those of you who don't know, BoJack Horseman was created by Raphael Bob Waxberg, and this is the final season of the Netflix show. Before we get into the summary, obviously you just kind of alluded to it, but like, what were your thoughts?
There wasn't as much development, which I guess makes sense because it's the second half of the last season.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first half, there was more like they actually it felt like more of just like a regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this one was just like, it was definitely like, yep, it's finishing, it's over, we're clearing things up, and they pull a lot of end of season cliches and they just like throw them at the window just to like make it very blatantly obvious, like this is the last season, we're pulling out all the stops,
They're
even though
letting you
half
know
of them
that
are
it's
just
done.
even though half of them are just like fake outs and whatnot.
Which is kind of nice. Like, I think one of the complaints I was reading online about... So a big part of the process of my research is I'll try and get the pulse of like what people in general are saying.
Right. You go into the Reddits.
Yeah, like I'll do some Reddit.
Twitters.
I'll do, a really big one actually is like looking at the press material that the companies put out after their show or movie is dropped. So they'll put out like, a series of trailers or whatever after season 6 part 2 came out, and people who have watched it will go on there and comment their thoughts.
Right.
It's actually a really interesting source of like the way people, it gets you a really good temperature on what people are feeling. And the interesting thing this time is they put out a video that was every character's first and last lines in the show, which is a really interesting experiment that highlighted some of the stuff that we'll talk about, which is that a lot of the deep and meaningful stuff that people are keen to read into this show does exist, but a lot of that is maybe subtextual, or a lot of that is not necessarily.
So watch that video. It seems interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to watch. Like I think you would expect it to be way more profound and like have the first and last lines really linked, but super not, which is kind of indicative of something in and of itself. Look, I watched it twice, the season 6 part 2. I watched it twice before recording, and the first time I was really like kind of nothing on it. Like I didn't really get anything from it. Second time, I have to say, like I really enjoyed it a lot more because I knew what it was going for, and it very confidently did what it did.
Right.
I think is what I would say. Like as a conclusion to quite a big TV show, it very confidently stepped in and put some closure on some things that I'm not sure a lot of shows do very well, which is that last kind of season wrap up bit, and we'll kind of get into how that works thematically and narratively, and whether or not we think it's a good conclusion. But I think at the very least, like the confidence with which it approached this is something I haven't seen a lot of.
Yeah, I think it was a good conclusion. It definitely didn't kind of it didn't like overstay its welcome or try to kind of like weasel itself into having, unanswered questions that, stick with the audience and make people think about the show for years to come. It's like, no, it knew that it was finishing, and it was like, all right, we're going to respect our audience and actually just give them an ending and not kind of
not fuck them
be
around.
A complete dick tease and, give them like a
Pretend
non-ending ending. Yeah.
Definitely. And I appreciate that they had that candor to respect us.
Yeah.
But we should put the pillow in the middle. Lean
No, this is my pillow.
You leaning on it? Damn,
yeah, it's more comfortable.
Adam will be like, branding.
You can have that branding. You can have that's
not going to be an awkward position for you to sit in at all.
That's all you get.
Okay. Let's get into the summary, and then let's get into the meat and potatoes of this one. We pick up in Wesleyan University, where Bojack teaches acting and struggles to establish boundaries with Hollyhock. Meanwhile, Diane struggles with her depression in Chicago. She at once wants to write her memoir about suffering and loss, but struggles to do so while on her antidepressants. Elsewhere, Hollywood reporters pay a visit to Penny and begin to narrow down on the Bojack Hollyhock story. While Max and Paige interview Mr. Peanut Butter, Pickles and Joey Pogo grow closer and resolve their differences. Bojack tries to put together the pieces after an alarming phone call. However, Sarah Lynn's story still comes out, and Bojack provides an interview for the first time since Filbert. Diane eventually meets Guy's son. Bojack, now effectively a pariah from society after his second interview, finds a new AA sponsor with a checkered past. Todd plans a party to impress his mother, and Diane learns about Sonny. Meanwhile, Angela Diaz reaches out to Bojack with a proposition. Princess Carolyn gets a sweet offer from Lenny Turtletop, and Todd hatches a scheme to see his mother. Bojack meets up with Angela Diaz and begins drinking with her. He spirals into a bender, which sees him in a dreamlike reality with the ghosts of his past at a dinner party. After the party, each person performs their final act on stage and leaves via the door into the other side. Bojack realizes he's not ready to go and resists. Bojack survives and is consequently sent to prison for breaking and entering and his bender. He's allowed out for 24 hours to attend Princess Carolyn's wedding with Judah. Bojack attends the wedding, and much to his surprise, nothing goes terribly wrong. Bojack and Todd reconcile some, and on the roof, Bojack and Diane reflect on their lives together. It's clear that this is where their story ends, and it's also where our story ends. Credits. It's again similar to the first part of season 6. Like not a lot actually happens.
Yeah. So it's the first half of season 6 is kind of concerned with a lot of like aftermath of previous stuff. Where it's like...
But yeah, reflecting on Sarah Lynn's death as well.
Yeah, and like all of the things that Bojack's done previously are like actually coming back to haunt him. Whereas this half is like there isn't too much that really comes back to haunt him per se. It's mostly just like there's really only like a few like problem things that happen. Mm-hmm. Like probably just the interview being like really the only thing that like comes and goes. And the rest of the season, yeah, it's just sort of it's dealing with... Okay, we've got this pile of characters, and the show's done a pretty good job of throughout the seasons moving them to points where this season makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not like there's any characters who feel overly rushed, except maybe Peanut Butter.
I was going to say the first name that came to my mind when you said that was Peanut Butter.
He's probably like the most rushed. His relationship with Pickles is probably, they probably were just like, oh, fuck, let's just throw it out the window. Let's get rid of it. Because we need it. We need him to be in this state that they had obviously planned for him to be.
Which was for him to help with Bojack getting out of prison.
And for him to be happy, like, on his own, like, finally for once.
What you were kind of saying, I think is completely correct. The first half sets up a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it seems to have this, like, the sensation we left part 1 with that we talked about in our episode was that there was this sensation that this stuff was going to come out, Hollyhock was going to find out, and he was going to fall off the rails, get cancelled, like relapse, that kind of thing. Like it was this kind of apocalyptic scale that like 6 seasons of this story and struggle
we're just gonna like explode,
and it's like completely explode. It's gonna be like this Armageddon of truth or whatever. But the truth is, like, all of that stuff does happen, but it isn't the end of the world. Like Bojack is cancelled. He does relapse. He goes to prison. He gets sober again.
It just kind of happens though.
It's not this apocalyptic like, oh, it's the end of the world for this character or like it just kind of, it doesn't
like there's no like earth-shattering revelations that happens in this half of the season. There's no like, the interview is just him sort of telling the truth about what actually happened with Sarah Lynn, and when that comes out, you know, it's like this big deal, and it's from like a world perspective, like he's like hated by literally everyone. Like literally everyone hates him. But from like a narrative perspective, it's like it doesn't affect the story really. It's just like, if anything, it's just like a stepping stone between like him being hated and then him getting the proposition from the ex-producer. Yeah. And then going on the bender, dying. Dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it was just like a stepping stone on the way to where they wanted him to be. I feel like they wanted to do like the fake out of him dying. They were just like, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Let's just fucking do it. You know, people have been wanting it or like expecting it.
Did you think he was going to die in that episode?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
I was, when it was happening, it was the kind of thing where I'm just like, I know this is the second last episode. I would be entirely fine with them killing him now and then having the last episode be kind of just like everyone else reconciling it.
I thought that was going to be the case. And it's
almost what happens, like him going to jail.
He basically drops off the face.
He does, yeah. It gives everyone else that ability to go through a bunch of changes, which we find out when he's at the party.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost, again, like a lot of this comes back to like respect for the audience, because we've talked a lot about how, like, you know, you watch the show and you're gonna find a character who you really resonate with. Yeah. I almost feel like they had this situation where it's just like, we can kill Bojack here, but that would be pretty brutal for the subset of our audience who, for whatever reason, you know, no disrespect to them, but for whatever reason, are still associating with Bojack as a character. Mm-hmm. It's probably not in our best interest to just kill him off.
It's also like pretty unempathetic to do something like that.
Yeah,
for a show
that really like that has these characters that really dig in and like latch onto you as like you really associate with them. Mm-hmm. It's pretty rough for them to just chuck one of the characters in the pool, and just kill.
Yeah, especially because it has such a focus on like you should never judge people as simply as you would like to. Like there's a big theme in this show about like people are very complicated.
When it was happening, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Like they're deciding to kill him. But then when they were like the fake out, it wasn't like, oh no, yeah, that makes sense. Like they're not going to kill Bojack. At least not yet.
There's another question that I have is like, given how focused the show is in general on like nihilism and like particularly like on an existential level, Bojack is pretty preoccupied with this idea that he feels like nothing he ever does has any consequences, so he can do whatever he wants. In some ways, this season gives him his comeuppance in a lot of ways, but it doesn't seem to like have an impact. Like prison's good for him because he has structure. Like to an extent, he kind of gets away with it, but to an extent, like he comes back and Princess Carolyn's like, hey, you should kind of keep your options open or whatever. And like clearly she's like, this is not. He thinks it's like an open slate. She's like, you're still kind of going to be a pariah. Yeah. But there's no like cosmic karmic consequence to his actions. Like someone he loves isn't punished. Like no one dies because of his actions.
Yeah, I feel like the last episode in particular, it's almost inconsequential that he lives or dies in the second last episode, because the entirety of the last episode is focused on the other characters, like sort of wrapping up everyone else's like where they are and where they're going forward from that position. And you don't need Bojack to be there. He's almost like this ethereal, ghostly form that is like haunting this party. And it's like, and because he communicates with each of the people like one-on-one, separately on their own. Like there's never like a big group at the end. It's like it's Bojack with Peanut Butter, then it's Bojack with Princess Carolyn, then it's Bojack with Todd and Bojack with Diane. It's these separate like one-on-one interactions, and because Bojack's for a lot of people the main surrogate character, it's really just like he doesn't need to be there, but it would be hard for them to tie up all these ends without him, because there would be no reason for these people to explain their situation. Where, you know, so if Bojack did die, you've got all these characters who have made these quite big changes, both like while he was in prison and throughout the whole season, and they're just expressing where they are currently. It would be, you know, you essentially just need soliloquies.
Yeah, what would the alternative be? Like, you know, they go to his funeral and like they say goodbye to him individually and like recap what's happened.
Yeah, or like their eulogy is like, it'd just be weird.
Yeah.
Him being there just like, narratively it means that they're able to just like wrap up everyone else.
Did you feel that with that wrapping up? Because like, I mean, we'll talk about the Diane thing last, because that's the very last thing that happens. And it kind of speaks to the show's sort of, I guess, what the show thinks about endings. It's the same with the Todd on the beach conversation. But in general, like the idea of the wedding with PC and Judah, and like this idea that like even Todd, you know, reconciles with his mother. Like everyone seems to get what they want except Bojack, because he kind of stops wanting. I was trying to put it together when I was doing my research the other night, but like his arc in this season is he goes through the recovery process, has trouble with it, ends up getting his fucking the person running the therapy center, like drunk.
Yeah.
Goes through that trauma, thinks that he's on the road to recovery. Then Hollyhock finds out his secret, and it seems like everything's all over and it's going to be the end of the world. But he doesn't know about that. He only knows that the reporters are investigating, and then it comes out that very same night. He doesn't actually have the same arc that we see the story go through. He just literally like has that one night, goes to the interviews, then ends up on the bender, then ends up in jail. Like he doesn't have like the interesting, like the narrative arc doesn't necessarily reflect where Bojack is at.
Yeah.
Which is like super interesting because he really doesn't change that much this season. He kind of comes into it like, yeah, he accepts therapy and he kind of ends up integrating himself into that. But after that, that's pretty much it. Like the only other thing that is a big significant change for him is that he enjoys teaching.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
That's just kind of like a through line throughout the whole season the whole half of the season is the teaching aspect, where it's like his version of like being reformed, where he's got this teaching gig at the college, and that's like his, you know, when he's going through the whole issue of, you know, the reporters kind of chasing him down, he's like flashing kind of in and out of this, you know, situation of being a teacher to all these students and then dealing with like the reporters. And then when he's in jail, it's the same thing. He's like trying to run this crazy, you know, kind of in prison.
So weird. Yeah.
There's not as many sort of drastic changes as there are in like other seasons. Because if you look at like season 1, probably like the big one for that is the baboon guy running up the hill, where it's like that's like a big takeaway from that season. And he's trying to like chase happiness in those first few seasons. And then after a while, it's, you know, he's trying to sort of in like the middle kind of seasons, he's like, what does it even mean to be happy? And then these last few seasons, in particular this last one, it's like, is it possible? Like, is it like, what is happiness?
That moment with Todd at the end is really the show's approach to that philosophical question. I think if you look at the show as a whole, one of the things that keeps happening is these characters keep getting up and trying again. The big thing about like every single character that we see at that end is they went through something pretty traumatic a few times. Like, you know, Todd has to reconnect with his mother. He goes through that discovery of his kind of asexuality and the difficulties he experiences with that. Obviously, Bojack has like just myriad issues.
Yeah.
Like Princess Carolyn has to go through this process of trying to find love, realizing that she doesn't need love to be happy, then, you know, having the child and thinking she doesn't love the child, and like just this arduous process for her of discovering like her own life, and then eventually realizing, of course, that like the thing she wanted was in front of her the whole time. Mr. Peanut Butter kind of goes through the same thing, where he goes through all of these really difficult marriages and relationships and ultimately realizes that like the thing that he needed was himself the whole time.
Yeah, he's kind of the opposite of Princess Carolyn.
Yeah, they have like the opposite arc. It's kind of cool. You know, obviously there was a lot of stuff in this that resonated with people as a show as a whole, like the mental health stuff, the way that it's able to like render the human experience through these animals. I don't know, like it's kind of weirdly disarming. We've talked about that a lot. But that Todd and Bojack scene on the beach is kind of where I think the creators of the show are kind of, it's almost meta at one point.
Oh, it's obscenely meta.
Yeah, so Todd explains that the point of the hokey pokey is not in fact what everyone thinks. The point is you do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. The turning yourself around is the point. The changing is the point. And Bojack suggests the writers probably didn't intend for that meaning. And Todd agrees, but suggests that maybe the point of art is what you get from it, not always what's put into it. And I think like Bojack as a story, as we always talk about, like it provides so many different things for so many different people. The breadth and depth of like the takeaways from this fucking show, the amount of characters you can identify and associate with. You know, each season we watch it and we identify with someone different most of the time. Like I'm still kind of stuck in the Bojack thing because of the person, like kind of person I am, but you kind of bounce through different, and you're like, oh, this season Diane was kind of, I felt where she was. I felt Diane in season 5 big time. It was when she kind of went and tried to find herself again. I felt that like spiritually, like that was
I this season and like this half of season 6, I like really didn't like Diane, not because she's like badly written or anything or like anything like that, but because
she's unlikable.
Well, I don't know. It's like she's just like reminded me of a few people, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like it's like a weird thing where I'm like, oh, I can see people I've known in Diane, and I'm like, oh man, that's really confronting.
there's parts of that I see that the Diane stuff was pretty confronting for me, because the parts of that I see in myself as a writer. Like it does, that for me was the most reflexive piece of writing I've ever seen. That is definitely the show's creators talking about themselves.
Yeah.
That idea of like that you should have to suffer to make good art, but that maybe it's okay to, like, if you make things people like, then you can be happy and also still make art. And like sometimes it's not so bad.
It doesn't have to be.
Doesn't all have to be doom and gloom.
Doom.
And that does seem to be the way the show ends too. Is it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
You know, I think, yes, the creators can't embed every single meaning that people have read into this show, but in the nature of rendering something this complex and nuanced, obviously they're going to hit on some stuff that is their intention.
Yeah, and they've definitely planned it like with the Princess Carolyn and Peanut Butter, with them being kind of opposites. Like, you know, that means that they're able to catch people who, on one hand, are like single and trying to find what it means to be in a relationship, and people who are in relationships trying to figure out what it means to be single.
Yes.
Like they're able to just create these characters who, on their own, they're still like very well fleshed out. They're not just mirror images of each other. But yeah, when you sort of think about it, you realize that, yeah, they're hitting like a very wide breadth of sort of human experience.
Yeah, and they do so without flinching. It can be really confronting. Like there's some stuff in this that I struggle to watch. It's a rendering of a piece of the human experience that you don't see on TV a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's either glamorized, it's valorized, it's romanticized, or it's completely avoided. A lot of the stuff about like mental health and like the way that the interactions between Guy and Diane about her mental health is some of the most realistic that I've seen on TV when it does come to that stuff.
Yeah.
Like when you miss a day of tablets or something like that, or you forget them, or you decide not to take them, and like that stuff happens. It's not like this big dramatic like blow up. It's like, just take your fucking tablets, level out, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, it's just
It's
weird.
just weird and practical and normal, and it becomes part of the
true.
normal.
That was actually super real. Was she doesn't take her pills? I was like, yeah, I've been there. It's
been
weird.
There. I missed one last week, and it was rough. Like I just missed a day, and I was like, fuck, man.
Yeah, and you spend the whole day just like with bees on your face.
It's so bad, and it's such
horrible.
but like you wouldn't. That's not something that you would normally put on fucking TV.
No, because it's
It's so mundane, but I think the show gets away with that because of the setting and the animals and the puns and the jokes, and also the amount of story they try and tell.
Yeah.
I guess like my point ultimately, like reflecting on the show as a whole, it is pretty confronting, and I think that speaks to the show's ability to get to the heart of all these topics it's tackling, but without sort of prejudging them. You were saying before that with Bojack in particular, like it doesn't necessarily condemn him and kill him and go like, well, he got his just desserts. Like it's still his punishment seemingly is that he has to keep living.
Yeah, his punishment is is that there is no closure. Well, not that there's no closure.
Oh, but it's what Diane says. Like life sucks, and then you just keep living.
Yeah, it's that life sucks and then you die. It's like, well, no, maybe life sucks and then you keep going.
Right, and
it keeps sucking.
That's the realest shit ever.
Yeah.
Like that is an ending that doesn't fucking pull any punches.
No,
because life sucks and you die is like a convenient, nice little neat ending.
It's nice because you get away with it.
But the goddamn truth is like life sucks and then like you have to wake up. You have to
keep living. Yeah.
I was having a conversation with someone. And I asked them like they said, I haven't watched BoJack, and I was like, it's exactly down your alley. Like they struggle with a lot of the same stuff I do, and she was like, look, the reason I watched the first half of season 1 and then I had to shut it off because its lens is too sharp. It's too refined. Like,
yeah.
And I completely empathize with that. Like, I think it is a show that can be difficult to approach.
When did BoJack season 1 drop? When did we start? It was like a year after we started this show.
Well, we covered season 1 and 2 together.
Oh, because we missed. Because we were like behind a year. So did it start in like 2014 then, I guess?
2014, yeah.
Yeah, so that would have been... Yeah, so 2015 was like for me when I was coming around, when I was sort of getting better, when I was being a bit less weird. Because of that, it was easier to kind of watch it because it was more of a reflection of the past, not sort of like, I can imagine if you're in the midst of it, watching it, it would feel like staring into a crystal ball and just being like, what? No, what the heck?
It's like
no, like
staring face on into the void.
Yeah, and because it is a caricature. It is fiction. It's just it draws from a lot of shared experiences that you have that people don't talk about when you go through that kind of mental health cycle. The stuff like when you forget to take your pills and you have a weird day.
Yeah.
And or
you forget to take your pills and like you have an argument with someone you love, or like you do dumb shit. Like
and you have nights out where you go and you just get absolutely hammered and you just like, Jesus, that was weird.
Yeah.
I can imagine if you're sort of in that midpoint, it would be a very sharp lens.
Definitely. Yeah, I can completely empathize with that. But I guess like reflecting on the show as a whole to kind of wrap it up, like now that we're at the end of it, where do you land on it? What's kind of...
I need to rewatch it. I think I'm gonna like rewatch the whole thing.
Yeah. We should rewatch the whole thing and then do a complete retrospective at some point.
It might be a while away.
Yeah.
But I do want to rewatch it just because, I mean, it's a well-made show, so it's good to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll rewatch it with Laura because she kind of got lost kind of in the earlier seasons, and then I had to, power through it for the episodes.
Yeah.
So I might watch it with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it might be the kind of thing where... Because I know because we both watched it, we watched the whole thing pretty much just solo.
Yeah.
It might be interesting to see if it's the kind of show that if you've seen it and you've sort of gone through that shit that you can share with someone, not necessarily someone who's going through the same kind of shit, because again, it might be a bit too confronting, but maybe someone who hasn't gone through it and doesn't really understand.
I think it's a good tool for that. Yeah, definitely.
And like it is entertaining and it's not informative necessarily, but it has perspectives in it which aren't, and they're not like human lived perspectives because they're not real people.
But they are lived perspectives.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I guess it's not like a documentary where it's like when you watch like a documentary or something, or if you watch like, I don't know, like Schindler's List, it's like that's like super confronting because you have this idea of that actually happened, and it is like a dramatized aspect of something that actually happened. But with this, because it's cartoon horses, you can kind of detach from it a little bit, especially if you're kind of outside that realm of having dealt with it before.
Yep.
So I think from that perspective, it's the kind of thing where, like sit down with someone who's like willing to commit to watching 6 seasons of it and sort of get through it.
I do think it is going to be an interesting tool for that going forward when you do want to kind of explore that stuff.
Yeah.
In a way that feels relativly safe.
Knowing how it ends, it's like, that's the thing. It's
feels
like
a little more comfortable to recommend.
That's definitely it. When the end of every season was this like absolute black hole of anything could happen, it was hard. It was hard to recommend it to someone because when they would catch up to you, they would just fall into the same pit. You'd be like, welcome, here's my home, the hole.
I remember very vividly there's an episode that ends, and it's when Mr. Peanut Butter has the game show where Bojack dumps the money into a And it's always, I think it's interesting too that like even the stuff that is good, like, PC marrying Judah and like Diane sort of having a stable relationship or whatever, that stuff isn't great. It doesn't, it doesn't sort of have this filter of like, this is the best thing to ever happen. It just kind of happens.
It's just like, it's a norm. It's like it's life. It's just, hey, there's some semblance of normalcy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. Like life just kind of returns to, eventually life returns to an established medium. And that's not such a bad thing as I think what this show is trying to say. I don't think it's particularly preoccupied with saying, okay, well, you should want this drama or this difficulty. Like ultimately, if you're happy with the medium of your life and the average that you live in, that's more than a lot of people have the luxury of having. That's more than a lot of these characters have the luxury of having because of their mental health problems, because of their personality quirks, because they haven't, been to therapy and done a lot of that work. It is the case that if you can have a happy medium where you can just exist and it's healthy and okay, that's maybe something to actually aspire to, and that not everything has to be this roller coaster of emotion and benders in like crazy like tantric sex and like going to different because that's like a big thing with Bojack.
Jeez.
Going underwater and all these Grammys and the fucking winning awards and being in films.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's okay to just exist and find a comfortable way to do that with people that you'd like to do it with. I think maybe that can be enough. And I think that's ultimately like the show of the message of the show. I don't think it's out there trying to grandstand and make a huge point about like how Bojack is an evil dude. I just think it's really interested in trying to communicate that it's okay to exist.
Yeah, and I'm glad it's over.
Same.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of a relief.
I'm glad it's done.
Yeah, I love this show, but thank Christ.
Thank God.
People that are like, they cancelled my favorite show. No, they ended it.
From like if we dive into the business a little bit, this like the show was like abruptly cancelled.
Yes.
Netflix, bear, whatever. But I think what they did with it was probably the best thing they could have done with the time.
Absolutely.
Because how many episodes per season do they normally do? Like
it's like 16 or 17. I think.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that.
So this was like essentially one season. They just did it.
I could be wrong. Halves. They do vary. The first season's shorter, I think.
Yeah. And I imagine like they probably would have wrapped things up basically the same way, just maybe with one extra season.
I could see you could do a season of Bojack in prison and stuff like that. There's some stuff that you could have done with this if you had more time.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and maybe a season of Bojack being cancelled or.
Yeah, but then I kind of like the way that the weighting was given to that not really being the focus, because what do you do with that? Like, how do you talk about that in a way that has any kind of value at all, except to say that, like, yes, you should have been cancelled. Like, they did all of that in the time they had.
I think they pulled out the most of that they could have with just the sort of commentary on the, whenever someone gets cancelled, they're usually very widely accepted into some certain spaces. Mm-hmm. Like they would like, that's all you really need to say that's all you really need to say. Yeah. And so they did it. And you when it's happening, you're seeing it coming from a mile away. You're like, oh, I see exactly where this is going to go. And then it happens. You're like, all right, cool. We don't have to dwell on that for a whole season.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, I see where it's coming from, where it's going. Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's pretty much it for this episode. Do you have any recommendations for this week?
Oh man, I've been playing The Outer Wilds on PS4.
So good.
It is phenomenal.
Dude, I've been telling you to play that game for like 3 months.
Yeah, it's an absolute like travesty that it came out around the same time as The Outer Wilds because
bad timing.
It's just really bad timing because it is such a good game.
How good is it?
It is like it's just so good. I mean, apart from the fact that the flying around in space is just fun because it's all like super realistically modeled.
It's exactly your kind of shit.
Yeah,
it's all physics puzzles.
But like the narrative and like the discovery,
the emotion at the core of the story.
So it's the way we've been doing is me and Laura have basically been playing it together, where it's like I'm playing.
That's a good way to do it.
But like we're both like engaged in it and like unraveling the story, and like we've been like throwing around theories and like figuring things out and being like, oh, this is probably what's happening, and rah rah rah, and it's just a really fun game. So plus there's just like, it's just funny, like things will happen, you'll just be like, oh, I am now in the sun. Yeah.
It's also just it's visually quite beautiful.
It is. And there's nothing like just getting ejected into space and just going, well, I'm dead.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I really, really like it.
Definitely recommend it.
Yeah, if you want a quick like one tennis elevator pitch, basically like you're in a solar system in a time loop, and your job is to work out what's going on.
Yeah, if you want, you're in a time loop and you're trying to prevent the supernova. You're trying to prevent the sun from exploding. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. And it's everything goes from there.
There's
it's
a lot
really
in there.
Quite good. I've been playing Disco Elysium.
Another indie darling of the last year. That's like next on my list of games I should have played because I like indie games, but I haven't yet.
It's like one of the best RPGs I've ever played.
Yeah,
it's so fucking good.
I've heard that it's like very close to buying it when it was on sale last Steam sale, but I'll probably pick it up once I've done The Outer Wild.
The writing is just like so beautiful. I fucking love it. I was like, I need to bring that on the podcast. It's so good. Yeah, it's like two birds on a wire. I'm like, yes, it's so well written. It's such a good game. I really, really recommend it. Like I think what I would say is if you can get through the first day and you enjoy it, then keep playing it. But if you don't enjoy the first day, don't keep playing it. Because it's just more of that. Like it's just more of that. It's a really like you're either gonna love it or hate it kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, I really recommend it. Otherwise, if you want to support us, you can find us at Dcm.Works everywhere. We're on Twitter, Facebook. If you're watching the video of this on YouTube, make sure you check out some of our other projects we've got coming up. We've got a documentary coming up about the weirdest mod we've ever seen. That should be out by the time this goes up.
Yep.
Go check that out. Otherwise, I just interviewed Wayne June, the voice actor for Darkest Dungeon. That video project is coming up soon.
Spicy.
So you're actually in that video. You don't know it yet.
I am. I am aware of him.
Oh, no, there's another bit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, dear
so
God.
keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, if you want to follow us individually, I'm at DCM I Hate Pie.
I'm at Literal Citrus.
We'll see you guys next week. Now, Adam wanted us to record a Patreon plug for the top after we finish it. So I'm just going to... You just have to chip it. I'm just going to do it. You can chip it if you want.
Hi. No?
Let me hang on. Wait a minute.